In our first two classes, we learned what the Claude Certified Architect path is and what Claude itself actually is. Today we roll up our sleeves for our first workshop and cross a line that changes everything. Instead of talking to Claude through a chat window, we are going to make our own code talk to Claude directly. This is the single most important skill in the entire course because every application, every agent, every clever thing you will ever build on Claude rests on exactly this one action and 81 pool. A program sending a message and getting a reply. And the wonderful surprise is how simple it is. By the end of this class, you will understand a complete Claude API call in just 3 ingredients. So let us make your code talk to Claude. Here is what we will build up today. First, what an API actually is. Second, the messages API, the one you will use. Third, the 3 ingredients every call needs. Fourth, the response that comes back. Fifth, the API key that authenticates you. And sixth, your first complete call put together. Let us begin. Let us start with the word itself, because it sounds more intimidating than it is. API. An API is simply a defined doorway that lets one program talk to another. Your code sends a request through that doorway. The program on the other side does some work, and it sends a result back. That is the whole idea, an A212, a structured way for software to ask software to do things. In our case, your program is on one side, Claude is on the other, and the API is the doorway between them. Your code passes a question in, Coordin 39, S answer comes back out. You never touch a website or type into a box and A2112. It is all program to program. Think of it like ordering at a restaurant. You do not walk into the kitchen and cook. You give your order to a waiter through a defined process, and the meal comes back. The API is that waiter and 82 have the agreed way to make a request and receive a result. So the takeaway, an API is a defined doorway. Your code sends a request through an A2112, and here, it is how your program hands a message to Claude and receives its reply. Now Claude offers this doorway in a specific, beautifully simple form, and it has a name worth knowing, an 8212. The messages API. The messages API is the one main endpoint you call to talk to Claude. An endpoint is just a specific address you send your request to. Learn this single one, and you can do almost everything. You do not need a dozen different calls. And here is the elegant idea at its core. You do not send Claude a lone question in isolation. You send it a conversation and A2112, a list of messages exchanged so far, and A2112, and Claude replies with the next message in that conversation. It always thinks in terms of a dialogue. This is a lovely mental model because it mirrors exactly how a conversation with a person works. Everything said so far is the context, and the other party responds with the next thing. The messages API simply makes that programmable. So the takeaway, you talk to Claude through the messages API, a single endpoint, and 82.1, you send it the conversation so far, and it returns the next message. So what do you actually put into a call? This is the part that surprises people with its simplicity, and 82.1. There are just 3 essential ingredients. The first is the model and 8212, which code you want to use. As we saw last class, there is a family of them, from the fastest and cheapest to the most powerful. And here, you simply name the one that fits your task. The second is the messages and A212, the conversation itself, the list of what has been said so far, which you are asking Claude to continue. And the third is a limit on the length of the reply, and 82 palvo, the maximum number of tokens Claude is allowed to generate in its answer. Tokens are the small pieces of text a model works in. This simply caps how long the response can get, which protects you from a runaway answer and from unexpected cost. That is genuinely all a basic call requires: a model, the messages, and a length limit. 3 fields, and you have a complete, valid request ready to send. So the takeaway, a call needs just 3 ingredients: an A2112, which model to use, the messages to continue, and a maximum length for the reply. Let us zoom in on those messages, because each one has a tiny consistent structure that you will see everywhere. Every message carries a role and 8212, a label saying who is speaking. When you send your question, its role is user, meaning it came from you. When Claude answers, its message carries the role assistant. These two roles, user and assistant, are how the conversation keeps track of who said what. And alongside the role, every message carries its content and A212, the actual text. For your message, the content is simply your question or your prompt, the words you want Claude to respond to. Role plus content, and the message is complete. So a message is a wonderfully small thing, a label for who is speaking, and the text of what they said. Your first call will contain exactly one such message, NA2A2L. Role, user. Content, your question. So the takeaway, every message is just a role, and its content and A212, who said it and what they said and A212, and you send Claude a single message with the role, user and your text. You have sent your request. Now let us see what comes back, because the response has the same friendly shape. Claude replies with a new message, and that message carries the role, assistant. This is the key symmetry to notice. Claude Tiny 9's answer is not some alien object and A212, it is just another message, exactly like the one you sent. Only this time it is Claude Tiny 9's turn in the conversation. Inside that response, you will find the content A812, Claude 1821, sexual answer text, the thing you were after, and alongside it, some useful information, most notably a count of how many tokens the call used, both in your input and in Claude Tiny 9's output, which is what your usage is measured by. So the round trip is complete and symmetrical. You sent a user message in, and an assistant message came back out. The conversation has advanced by exactly one turn, driven entirely by your code. So the takeaway, Claude replies with an assistant message containing its answer text, plus a count of the tokens used in 821. The response is simply Claude 39's turn in the same conversation. Now is one more essential piece, and it is about proving who you are on I212, the API key. An API key is a long, secret string, an A212. Think of it as your personal password to the Anthropic API. Every request you send includes your key, and that is how the service knows the call is genuinely coming from you, and whose account to associate the usage and the billing with. Without a valid key, the doorway simply stays shut. And because it is effectively a password, you must keep it secret. Never paste your key into code that you share publicly. Never commit it into a public repository. Never post it in a chat. Anyone who has your key can spend your money and act as you. The practical habit is to keep the key out of your code entirely and I200 off, storing it in your environment or a secret manager and letting your program read it from there. Treat it with the same care you would a bank password. So the takeaway, your API key is a secret that authenticates every call and ties it to your account and 82,000, so guard it carefully and never publish it anywhere. Now, let us assemble everything into a single, plain English picture of our first call, so you can see the whole shape at once. Stripped of all syntax, our first call says just this. Using this model and authenticated by my key, send this one user message to Claude. And then give me back Claude 9's reply, generated up to this maximum number of tokens. That is the entire request, in a sentence and 82 hefty. A model, a key, a message going out, and a length limited reply coming back. Whatever programming language you use, and whether you call the endpoint directly or through one of the official software kits that wrap it neatly, the underlying shape never changes. It is always the same pieces, arranged the same way. Master this shape once, and it transfers everywhere. So the takeaway, a first call in plain words, is simply an AT Centifem with my key and a chosen model, send this user message and return Claude Tiny 9's reply up to this many tokens. Let us pause and appreciate what this humble little call actually represents. because it is a bigger moment than it looks. You have automated a conversation with Claude. There was no website, no manual typing into a chat box, and 8200 Taur, your own program initiated the exchange, sent the message, and received the answer entirely on its own. That is the difference between using Claude and building with Claude. And this one call is the foundation for absolutely everything that follows in this course. Every chatbot, every coding assistant, every autonomous agent you will design is, at its heart, the same call any 200 fall, made again and again, wrapped in logic, connected to tools, and orchestrated cleverly. But the atom is always this. So do not underestimate what you have just understood. It is small, but it is the seed from which every sophisticated Claude application grows. So the takeaway, you made your program talk to Claude on its own, and 82112, and every app and agent you will ever build rests on exactly this one foundational call. Let us gather the whole class in one breath. An API is a doorway your code sends requests through to reach Claude. The messages API is the single endpoint, and 8212, you send a conversation and it replies. A call needs 3 ingredients: the model, the messages, and a maximum reply length. Each message is a role and A2 user or assistant and A2 and its content. Claude replies as the assistant with its answer text and a count of the tokens used. And your API key authenticates every call, so keep it secret. Next class, system prompts and how to shape the way Claude behaves. One idea at a time. That is your first API call, and 82112, one model, one message, one key, and a reply comes back. It is a small piece of code, but it is the doorway to everything. Every assistant, every agent, every application you will build in this course begins right here. You are no longer just a user of Claude. You have become a builder with Claude. We will see you in the next class.